Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob. Here we are, this lovely, lovely February 20th. It was 70 degrees in Boston today. In Rhode Island, it was 65 or 66. I still don't figure that one out. Why Boston's more north of us, yet it was warmer in Boston than it was in Providence. Anyhow, it was warm, and it's got to be even warmer tomorrow, which begs the thought process that maybe something is going to be real hot this summer. Does that mean anything? Or is it possible? Let's hope so. I don't like hot. I don't like hot.
I'll take it.
I don't like either. And with me already, we got Mark Rapoza with me. How you doing, Mark? Nice to see you.
Great. Nice to see you as well.
Mark Rapoza is a stockbroker, business
financial advisor.
I was going to give you the whole package.
Yeah, sure.
Business analyst, financial broker,
Yep.
Stockbroker, financial analyst.
Yes.
You're the whole. And you've been doing this a while.
Yes, almost about 25 years.
Have you really? Almost as long as I've been on this television show. Do you realize that?
Yes.
And you've been with Barrett how long? Barrett is in Providence. It's an old firm, right?
It really is.
1928?
Yeah, 1928. The firm
what a memory.
has been right in downtown Providence, and terrific place. It's right in the heart of the city on Bassett Street, and in a historic building in a beautiful area of the city, and it's great. It's great to see too, because I've been in Providence now for over 20 years, and it's great to see that the city has really experienced, I think, in the last couple of years,
a renaissance.
Really has. You see a lot of bustle in the city, a lot of young people walking around, college students, apartments. The arcade back open. It's just really, really nice to see.
The oldest mall in the United States.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, it's great to see. So,
do you know? You don't know this, but back in the day, in the 70s, I worked for Aetna. At the time, the largest financial institution in the world.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, yeah. A lot of activity in Providence. Beautiful city.
And my office was in the old Superman building.
Yes.
And then when the Hospital Trust Tower, which that later became the Fleet Center there, was built, when the tower, that flat tower with the heliport on the top, when that was built, we moved over there. We were the first tenants. Aetna was the first tenant in that building.
Yep, there's a lot of great firms in the city, and Barrett is really, we're a brokerage firm and a full-service advisory firm. We work with, both individuals, corporations, and do, really advisory and planning for clients.
Now, what is the purpose of a good financial advisor?
Well, I think, first and foremost, a great financial advisor recognizes for clients, first and foremost, that all human beings have a conflict. They have a conflict between...
What do you mean the conflict?
A conflict between...
A personal
conflict in a financial discussion between short-term emotional wants and long-term investment needs. So what the great advisors, I think, are able to do is resolve this conflict in the right way. But
first and foremost, you have to find out what the conflict is.
You have to find out what the conflict is, and we do it. What we do is do it in a couple of different ways. So first and foremost, we help the client develop a financial plan. So we try to find out what the goals, what the objectives, what is it that the client is trying to achieve. That's first and foremost. That gives really something that forms the basis of all of the relationships.
Now, is the stock answer, I want to make money?
At times, it can be, but we really try to get in depth in terms of what are the specific goals, what is it that the client's trying to achieve. We also, I look at it as three components: the financial plan itself, another thing which we can elaborate on a little bit later, which is investment behavioral coaching, which is basically keeping the client invested through all phases of the market and cycles. And also through client education. We have found that as the better educated the clients are on all different aspects of finances and financial planning, the more apt they are to stick with that process all the way through.
Right, right. Because the biggest mistake, I guess, is a person jumps in and jumps out, right?
Correct, which we'll elaborate a little bit on, but I believe inherently that's one of the biggest mistakes people do, is because they don't have a plan, they tend to bounce from one one thought to another. So one of the things that we do as part of the financial plan, and is tethered really to a financial plan, is to come up with an investment policy as well as an investment philosophy that the client can then and the advisor can build everything around. It really ties everything together. So we want to figure out for the client, what are they trying to achieve, how are we going to achieve it, and what mechanisms are we going to use to get them where they want to go.
Right. Okay, as far as stocks, bonds, and or cash,
yeah,
as part of a portfolio, how do you break that down? How do you decide percentages, or how do you decide which way a person you utilize their wealth, I guess?
Right. So there's really three major components of most planning. So number one, the simple one is cash. So for essentially what we do is when we have conversations with clients is we say anything that has a 6-month, 1 to 3 year need, cash has a great benefit of that. So if the client's interested in buying a house, it's liquid. The client is interested in buying a house, renovating a house, buying a boat, a car, college expense coming up in the immediate term, that has an aspect, certainly an aspect to it. Bonds essentially tend to, we put them in portfolios, again, as a generalization for most people, to really kind of a yin and yang to stocks. They tend to move a little bit in opposite directions.
A little more conservative,
A little more conservative, tend to be a diversifier to stocks, and also tend to provide a pretty consistent income stream. And then,
excuse me, but aren't stocks many times tax-free, or are they?
Well,
unless
bonds,
I'm sorry.
Bonds can be if it's a municipal bond.
Right.
Most investments are taxable depending on what they are. But they do tend to offer pretty consistent streams of income, and they also tend to, as I said, offer a great diversifier for stocks. And stocks, or equities as I like to call them, are ownership of businesses. So that's one of the things we really focus on. A lot of times people think of stocks, they think of playing the market. One of the things that we really try to advise clients and educate clients and ourselves always is to say, no, it's not, you're not buying stocks, you're buying ownership in companies. And I think this is where it's really, really important to look at, and it goes back to the client education process of looking at the history of equities, because based on some of the things that we're seeing and that we'll talk about tonight, we see equities as a real core component of portfolios. So if you go back...
Again, equities and stocks.
Stocks, exactly. So if you go back, and I think this is where history is a great guide. If you go back and you look at, let's say, the Dow Jones Industrial Average back in 1900, the Dow Jones was at about 65. Today it's at 26,000. If you go back and you want to look in more recent history, the Standard & Poor's 500, which is a general benchmark of the 500 most widely owned companies in the United States.
Oh, that's why the
S&P index. Yep, the S&P index. If you go back in just recent history and you look, let's say, go back to 1980. If you go back to 1980, that index was approximately about 100 in value. Today it's 2,600.
Wow.
So it's gone up 26-fold over the course of 36 years. So one of the things...
And what's the other one? What's the other market?
The Nasdaq?
Nasdaq.
Nasdaq is also a barometer. The two big ones, though, that people identify with are the Dow Jones and the S&P 500. Why that is so important, and we think so critical, is because when you look at it from that perspective, the market never moves in a linear fashion. It doesn't. It's not as if it climbs every year 6%, 7%, 8%. We've had a lot of events between 1980 and 2018, up and down years. But on the same token, with that being acknowledged, we can see that the markets over time have provided a great return for investors who've hung in. So that kind of ties back into the behavioral coaching and such of keeping clients invested through all cycles of the market.
Through thick and thin.
Correct.
Because, what was it, 2007, 2008? Wasn't that a real bad time?
It was. It was a downturn. It was a period that was very difficult, but yet on the same token, again, if you look throughout history, those events have happened over and over again. So one of the things that, even going back to your first question, that I believe, or at least I personally believe, that financial advisor is not meant to do, or at least I don't believe so, is market prognostication. I mean, this idea that the advisor can predict the level of interest rates, predict what the next 1,000 points on the Dow Jones Industrial Average are going to be, these types of things I think are really invaluable to the client. But the things that are important are, again, tying in that, building the financial plan and tying that together and setting up the portfolio with stocks, bonds, and cash for the long run.
Now, how does one know? Say I got a stock portfolio, $100,000, say, and I noticed on the show, the news, it says, oh, stocks just went up 1,000 points. That could mean a lot to me or could mean very little to me.
It really does. That's correct. And I would look at that as it's really not important in the short term, because most clients that we deal with, and most clients I think in general, investors in general, are building plans for very long-term objectives, typically anywhere between 15, 20, 30 years. So what the Dow Jones happens to do this week or next week, we really try to advise and counsel clients that's not what's important. The importance is what is it going to do over 20 and 30 year cycles, 10-year cycles, and that's what we got to keep the focus on.
And because of the SEC, and I remember my days of being registered, you couldn't, you had to give a prospectus. You could never say
true.
that this is what's going to
Depending
happen.
on the investment, sure.
You can't say, I'm going to get you 8% interest on your
and it's
money.
really not valuable. It's really not valuable to the discussion, because it's taking an element to the future. What I believe, what I practice with clients is rational optimism. If you look again through history and historically speaking, we can see that portfolios properly diversified in equities, bonds, and cash have delivered good returns over long stretches of time. So therefore, we can't predict the future, but based on historical context, we can therefore build plans based on that, and that's what we do.
I could never understand how interest, you can only get 1% interest on your money in a bank, yet they're charging people as high as 33% on their on their credit cards.
Sure.
I don't get that.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
That's true.
Even in the days when credit card rates were realistic, like I can remember getting credit cards paying 6 and 7% interest on a credit card.
Yes.
And that's when the rates, the prime rate was 12, 13%.
Correct.
And I remember, I tell people this, and they laugh at me. My very first mortgage on the house was 15.5% interest.
Yes. Well, back in the 80s, 70s, and particularly in the 80s, interest rates had gone up quite a bit during that time. And
well, I think they were the worst, because I bought my first house
higher.
in, I think, 1970 or 71, and the interest rates were 15.5%.
Yes.
And then I paid lesser and lesser as I went along.
Much lower.
Yeah.
Yes.
But and I tell people today, I mean, you can't get money for, I mean, you can't get interest on your money in the bank today like you might have gotten years ago.
No, again, cash investments like that, they do play a role in a plan, but for long-term growth and the types of things that we're looking at for most people, for legacy, college planning, and things of that sort, generally speaking, there's some better alternatives.
Okay, look at me. I'm an old man. I got no kids. I mean, I got kids, but they're all grown up, right?
Yep.
No wife.
Yep.
It's just me.
Yes.
And I got a few bucks. What do I do?
Well,
go on a trip?
Yeah. You could do that. Well, that would really depend. It would really, so again, going back to kind of the original premise of what we talked about, we would sit down with you and try to discern what are those. So again, what you had just said, mentioning a trip, kind of goes back to the first thing we talked about, right? That short-term emotional want,
right?
And how does that balance into the long term? So there's certainly no reason not to enjoy those types of things and partake in those types of things. We encourage that with clients, but on the same token, we would first discern what is short-term and what is the long-term needs for you, and we would run that through a plan and run calculations and numbers for you and try to create the best situation possible.
Well, as we get in my age bracket, you got to look at life expectancy, right?
Yes, yeah, we'll get to that, I'm sure, at some point.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes. I mean, to be realistic.
Yes.
Whereas if you were talking to someone in their 20s, 30s, or 40s, you'd be looking to talk to them about keeping in the market for the next 20, 30 years.
Yes. Yes. True.
Right?
True. Very true.
So what is exponential technology got to do with the stock market?
Well, I in particular, we really believe that I think we're in the most really dynamic and exciting period ever in human history, and I really do believe that. And I think it's one of the things that I think is underplayed right now in terms of investment planning and thinking about the future. So let me elaborate a little bit. So our minds, our brains are all taught to think of everything in kind of a linear fashion.
Right.
I may look and say, how far is it from this table to the doorway? And I think, okay, 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps. And that's how I calculate in my mind. When we talk about exponential, we talk about something different. Exponential means we've got 1, 2, and then 2 goes to 4, 4 goes to 8, 8 goes to 16. So it's much, much faster growth. So the first way I usually try to explain it to clients and people we're sitting down with is kind of an old adage or story of the doubling penny. There's an old question.
Right, 30.
There's an old question of what would you prefer, $1 million today,
right,
or a doubling penny that doubles every day for 30 days?
I'll take the doubling penny.
You are correct. So the doubling penny, and it really shows what exponents do.
Because most people don't know that. Most of the younger people don't know that.
That is correct. So
right.
What happens is the doubling penny, in the first few days, the penny goes, then it goes to 2, then it goes to 4, then it goes to 8. Those first 7, 10 days, you're only at about 64 cents.
Right.
But when you get out 15, 20 days, it gets to 10,000, and by the end of 30 days, it's 5 million.
That's right.
Okay, so when we think about exponential technology and we explain these things to clients, we can use that as a kind of a reference point. So there's a law that was introduced back in the 1960s by one of the Intel founders that was called Moore's Law. And Moore's Law essentially was how many the number of transistors that you can fit on a circuit. And over time, every 2 years, that number would double. So the computing power would double every 2 years.
Right, and everything gets smaller and smaller.
Exactly,
exactly.
Yeah. So what we're seeing now, as we look forward, we think this is a process over the next 5 to 10 years, is a lot of technologies, whether it be artificial intelligence, robotics, nanotechnology, all of these exponential technologies are hitting a point where, like the doubling penny, we're at a point that in the next 5 to 7 years, a lot of these technologies are going to hit what we would call kind of an axiom, the knee of the curve, where the chart really starts to turn, where that doubling penny all of a sudden starts to get big quickly. So therefore, these technologies, we believe, are going to have a real profound impact on the way we live in the next 7 to 10 years. And I can certainly
look
give
at
some
the cars.
examples to that.
What have it's going to be 2 or 3 or 4 years. They'll be driverless cars.
A perfect example. So if we want to, I'll give you a couple, if it's helpful, for your viewers, a couple of just interesting examples of exponential technology in everyday life that we're seeing. There was a company out in California called Zoom Pizza. It's not a public company, it's just a company that was started up. And basically what they did is they established a pizza store.
Yep.
And what they did is they opened it with robotics. So
So
what they did is they opened up a pizza store, near Google, a lot of the Silicon Valley headquarters. And inside this pizza store is a combination of robots and human beings. And by doing that, what they were able to do with robotics, artificial intelligence, is to lower the input costs of developing a pizza.
And the time.
And the time. Why does that change things? Well, it changes things because what the company decided to do was, instead of just offering a cheaper pizza, they decided that we'll take that savings that we're making from the use of robotics and we'll invest it in better quality local ingredients. And when they did that, the pizza became a huge hit. And they're beginning to expand themselves across the United States. They also began working on creating almost like a UPS-style truck with ovens built in, that the pizzas could be cooked en route to a customer. So when the pizza arrives at your door, you've got a hot, fresh pizza coming to your door.
Right.
So what this will do is this will challenge other companies to do the same. So when we look at technologies today, I look at it really in two ways. There are companies that are being disrupted, their business models are being challenged, and there are then companies that are doing disruption, who are reshaping the way business is being done.
I'll give you two examples of that: Walmart and Amazon.
Correct. Correct. So all companies. So Walmart is now trying to spending a lot of money trying to catch up to up their presence. All companies are going through this process in every area. What you alluded to earlier, I think, is one of the most real fascinating things that will really see manifest itself in the next 3 to 5 years, and that's driverless cars.
Absolutely.
So think of driverless cars, and when we think about it, think of the impact that that's going to have on many, many areas of the economy. So number one, insurance. Driverless cars are not going to get in as many accidents, if any accidents. The ability for people who are older or elderly to be able to get transportation, to be able to go to places and go to events even if they can't drive. The less use of parking lots to have to park your car. The idea that families, particularly in cities, may decide, well, we don't need 2 or 3 cars. We can get away with 1 car, and then the other car, we'll just kind of hit our phone, and when we need it, we'll get transportation. So that one development will reshape many, many industries for many years to come. That's they're already noticing case of an exponential technology.
They're already noticing less millennials are buying cars now.
That's correct. And even if we will take something, a last example.
That has to do with Uber and Lyft.
Yes, it does. And the last example I'll give is just kind of a very simple thing. So we look at a lot of these technologies. They're not just the big things like robotics and artificial intelligence and things of that sort. They can be used in very, very small ways. So I describe it to clients as almost like little specks of sand that are changing the way we live and the dynamics of the way we live. So you have companies today that are developing smart traffic lights. So when you put a traffic light at a very busy intersection, it's a smart light, and it's almost like having a traffic cop at a light.
There, yes.
It's reading, using camera images, reading traffic flow.
No traffic coming this way.
Exactly,
precisely. Turn that light red.
So think of what that does. What that does is reduces emissions, reduces fuel consumption, speeds up traffic flow. So all of these efficiencies we see as profound, and we see as something that's going to really fundamentally change the economy over the next 5 to 10 years.
And that makes very much sense.
Yeah, it does.
And you talk about robotics. I went to 2 companies in the last week and a half. You know, I work for the Lieutenant Governor. And
yes.
We're doing this tour of manufacturers in Rhode Island. I've never been so impressed by some of the manufacturers in this state, some of the companies. I would never have believed there are these companies in this little state that are in huge technological advances. There's a company in Cranston that makes robotic arms. There's a company in Bristol, Trimac, that's doing the same thing with robotics.
Correct.
And then there's Hectagon down in North Kingstown. I mean, I was sitting there doing something, and all of a sudden I got this feeling somebody was behind me or something was behind me, and I look and I see an arm. Didn't touch me or nothing, just moving. All of a sudden this arm was moving around. They make arms for for doctors, for hospitals,
Right.
for operations.
Correct.
That's how precise this stuff
So
is.
this technology, when we think about it and we think about the importance of it, it's really, we think, again, going back to exponential growth, going back to the doubling penny, we think we're in that period where in the next 5 to 7 years, a lot of these technologies, again, are going to profoundly change the way we live, the way we invest everyday life.
It's unbelievable.
It's
unbelievable.
It is.
So, and how's that going to affect our philosophy towards investment?
Well, we really, going back to some of the things we talked about earlier, we really, so when we develop a financial plan for any client, whatever that may be,
right?
It's very important, we believe, to tether that to kind of an investment philosophy, because when you have an approach and you have a philosophy to say, hey, this is the way we want to invest over the long term, what that does is it engages the client and the investor in the process. So I believe that that's important, even if you're an investor on your own, even if you're doing your own investing,
right.
To have a philosophy, have an approach, because that's what you fall back on when things are not always going your way. It's no different than an athlete.
In other words, sticking with it.
Absolutely. And an athlete, if you
bad, good, or indifferent, you stick with it?
Absolutely. And that's very, very important.
So when somebody calls you and says, hey, look, the market just went down 1,000 points, get me the hell out of this stock market.
Yeah.
What do you say to them?
Very simple. First of all, let's reframe the question. Because the stock market, I would reframe the question for them, because the stock market, it's one of the things, when we say the stock market, it really in some ways insinuates almost like a casino or a roulette wheel, as if we're playing something. And what we tell clients is to redefine that in your mind, that you are investing in the great companies of the world. And that's very different. You know, if you look at Warren Buffett and a lot of the great investors of our time, they will tell you they are investing in companies. They're not playing the market. So if you think of it that way.
But Warren Buffett was always into what? Blue chips, right?
Blue chips, companies he could understand, companies he knows and he can relate to. But on the same token, he has a philosophy.
Yep.
He has a plan and of how he's going to invest for Berkshire Hathaway, and he sticks to it through all phases of the market.
Now, what's going to happen when, God forbid, he goes? What is he? He's 86, 87?
He is, but I would say that he seems to have a good team behind him, and I don't want to comment on an individual stock, but I would generally say that Warren Buffett he's had the benefit of being able to tailor the people he wants behind them.
Right.
Something
now,
that
isn't one of them? Who's his number one? Who's his
Munger? Charlie Munger, I believe.
Is he a relative, or?
I don't believe he's a relative, but he's kind of one of his partners that he's had from the beginning. He's older too, but I don't know the person's name.
No, I thought
know
there was a son or a nephew or something that's looked upon as the heir apparent.
I don't know, but I know Berkshire has done. I'm sure
phenomenally.
It's done well, but they've done a real good job of planning for the future and planning what's going to happen to the company after Warren Buffett. I'm sure they've had plenty of times to do that, plenty of time to do it, and I'm sure they'll do a good job.
Now, how long has Warren Buffett been at it?
I want to say there's some great books on Warren Buffett, one of which I read a few years ago. I believe I want to say it's Snowball, and it's terrific. I mean, Warren Buffett has really been the epitome of really long-term investing and investing in markets through thick and thin. I can remember going back during the financial crisis back in '08. I believe he was one of the first investors in an op-ed piece to say buy stocks now, and he kind of came out with that editorial right during the teeth of the decline because again he has an approach and he sticks with it. Right.
Well, listen, I got to go do some cooking, but before I go, I want you to think about penny stocks. I know that wasn't on our list, but I want you to show people why you stay away from some penny stocks.
Okay,
I took a beating. I took a beating on those penny stocks. Hang with us. I got to take a walk. Come on, take a walk with me. You hang on over there.
Okay.
Who's this, Sandy? How you doing? Nice to see you again.
Nice
Sandy
to meet
Batista, huh? From Cumberland, but working in, your business is in Pawtucket.
Yep, Pawtucket Proud, correct.
On Mineral Spring Avenue.
Yes.
What number Mineral Spring Avenue?
110.
110 Mineral Spring Avenue. It's called
Tugas.
Tugas?
Tugas.
That's Portuguese.
Yes.
Meaning?
It's a nickname that Europeans give Portuguese people.
Really?
Just means Portuguese people.
Tugas?
Yeah. Tugas, Portuguese, Tugas,
you just
Portugal.
point to them and you say Tugas.
I mean, I wouldn't point to anybody. Yes.
Now, is that Azorian Portuguese?
No, so someone in France would say, oh, there goes a Tuga. Like they would say
Really?
Brazilians abrazas, you know, and it's just a little nickname.
Have you been to Brazil?
I have.
You like
I
Brazil?
Loved it, yeah.
Really?
I'm Portuguese and Brazilian, so yes.
Oh my God, where'd you go to Brazil?
São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro.
What was the second one?
Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, I don't think I'd get that one.
Rio.
Oh, really? No, São Paulo. No.
São Paulo and Rio.
Oh, all right. But you didn't call it Rio.
Rio de Janeiro.
Rio de Janeiro.
Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, de Janeiro. Oh, Rio de Janeiro. That's what you said. Did you get that right off the bat when she said?
Yes, I did.
It must be the distance. All right, what are you doing? What are you doing for us?
So we are making bacalhau a gomes de sá, which is a...
Bacalhau. No, wait a minute. I do know that.
Yes.
That's a cod.
Codfish, correct. So it's sautéed codfish. When you go and purchase codfish at the store, you're going to buy it and it's salted. So you're going to have to take and put it in water for a couple of days to desalt.
Couple of days?
Couple of days, especially if it has a lot of salt. I like to eat it raw when it has a lot of salt like this. I wouldn't eat a lot of it, but I'll take a little chunk. And
Really?
then after a couple of days, you boil it, then you're ready to cook with it. It sounds
No,
like
now
just
why
come
put all
to
the salt
Tugas.
in it?
Just come to Tugas. It's the way of preserving the cod.
So why don't you just get fresh cod and cook it?
We can, but you won't get the same taste.
Oh, okay.
So there's actually a company in Pawtucket that does it. It's an amazing process.
Really?
They take the cod, they put real salt, then they take off the salt, then they put the sea salt, and it's a process that they
Is
do
that on
until they
Prospect
get.
Street? Where is that place?
Yeah, North American.
Yeah, I
Salt
thought
and
so.
fish. Yeah, so today we're going to make bacalhau.
Never been there, but I just happen to
it's a
know
good
that
place.
it's there.
Yeah, Manny's the owner. It's a good place.
Manny.
Man, of course.
Gee, God
It's
forbid.
either Manny or João, right?
Yeah, Manny and Maria. Go ahead. All right, so come on, let's go. Let's cook
All right. So we're going to make bacalhau a gomes de sá. It is the Lenten season, so a lot of Portuguese people are not eating meat on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Okay.
So we're going to add some garlic olive oil, which we make every day. This might sizzle a little bit. Don't get.
Good. No, I want to hear.
okay.
I want to hear sizzle.
And okay, you want to make sure you put enough olive oil to at least coat the pan,
Yeah.
or the everything's going to kind of stick to it. So we're going to throw some fresh onions in here.
Fresh onions. No, not scallions.
Not scallions,
Now,
white
what's the difference
onions.
between a scallion and an onion?
One's Italian, one's Portuguese. No, I can't. That was too easy. So once this gets going, you really don't have to add a lot of seasoning to it. The cod's still going to have a little bit of that saltiness.
Right.
So I like to add white pepper.
Oh,
So
I
we're
like pepper.
We add the white pepper. You can use black,
I
but
never
white
heard
is a
anybody say
little
anything
more.
bad about pepper.
I don't like it on my eggs. What do
You don't like
No, no.
Why?
I don't know. I like.
No, but I mean, it doesn't
Tabasco.
go. It's not bad for you. Like
No.
type
Oh
thing.
no, pepper's good for you.
Yeah,
Of
it's not
course.
like salt. I mean, pepper's good for you.
So we're gonna take the codfish.
All right.
Do you want to try a little bit?
No, I'm driving.
So we're gonna throw a couple spoonfuls. I'm making a mess. I'm sorry.
I'll finish it off.
I'm never
Throw
gonna
it
be
off.
invited back because
I'll
I'm making
cut
a
it
mess.
out.
Your tablecloth and your.
My new tablecloth. It's got a one shot tablecloth here.
So as you can see, you're just gonna saute it up until the onions get like
Caramelized.
soft. Caramelized, soft, yes.
Oh, is that
Caramelized, yeah.
Italian too?
We're also going to add potato to this. So this dish is very, very good.
No, that's
for
been
you.
boiled. That's been boiled.
This is a boiled potato, correct?
Or blanched, as they would. Some people
It's
call
boiled.
it. Right? It's
A little bit of
boiled.
salt, yeah. It's boiled. I don't have a knife with me.
You don't have a knife, so you gotta use a
So
fork.
I'm improvising.
Yeah.
But you're just going to cut up the potato.
Yeah.
Typically, it would be a cubed potato.
Right.
And this is actually a traditional Portuguese wedding dish.
Really?
So
Bacalao, bacalao, bacalao.
never, you know, I'm going to be in the kitchen singing that from now on.
Bacalao, yeah. So you do all the cooking over there, huh?
I do. I have a great team right now. I just hired a chef and a cook, and yeah, I'm a little busy doing appearances and things.
Oh, really?
They're helping me out, and they do a fantastic job. And that's pretty much it. Once this is caramelized,
yeah.
and we're going to saute it in there, the potatoes in there a little. You can cut these down smaller if you'd like.
Right.
We're just going to plate it and put a boiled egg on top of it and some more olive oil.
Now, what is with the thing with Portuguese and boiled eggs?
So a long time ago, during the Salazar and
During
you know, when there was a lot of socialism in Portugal, like, you know, they were very Salazar was the president at that time. People were very, very poor. They were very deprived during World War II.
And Spain had Franco, and Portugal had Salazar.
We had Nixon. So, no, it was very poor. So the people ate off the farmlands, basically.
Right.
So you'll find that a lot of the dishes use things that we typically won't eat, but it's a delicacy. So, you know, they'll take pork feet, pork ears, and they'll make a feijoada, which is a bean stew out of it.
Right.
And you know, people love that now, but it was poor man's food back then. So the rich people wouldn't eat it. The kings poo-pooed on it, and now, you know, everybody wants it.
Well, it's like I like the Portuguese dish with the cherry stones and the pork and the potatoes.
Well, that's what we made last time. The carne porco alentejana. That's actually...
I can't say it. That's why I can't order it.
Pork and little necks.
Pork and little necks. Hey, give me some pork and little necks. What would you say?
Carne de porco alentejana.
See? Now, what would you say?
What she said. We get a kick out of people actually trying to say it at the restaurant. It's so much fun, and you know, but it's a dish that originated in Alentejo, and Alentejo is a beautiful place in Portugal, and
in mainland Portugal.
Yep. So it's farmland, and they have they make a lot of wine in that area, and I don't think that they have the. I'm trying to do the map in my head. They really don't have ocean there, so. I don't know how they incorporated the clams into that, but they do have a lot of pigs over there. They're fresh pigs.
Fresh pigs, huh?
Fresh, you know, heart of the earth, wonderful pork meat. I love pork meat. So here you have your bacalhau gomsal. We put a boiled egg on top, sauteed the onion, sauteed the cod, some garlic, some olive oil, a little bit more olive oil on top, some fresh garlic, a little bit more white pepper.
Yeah.
Just to give it a little coating, not to overdo because it's strong.
All right.
Some red peppers, as we would say in Rhode Island. Peppers.
Well, where would you say it somewhere else?
Peppers.
No, just red peppers in Rhode Island?
Red peppers.
Peppers.
Yeah, we don't
pronounce not peppers.
Correct. And there you have bacalhau gomsal.
Is that a regular dish?
Yes, it's a very
Tugas?
popular. Yes, this is one of our most popular dishes. Yes.
It is.
We also do catering there, so this is one of our biggest sellers for catering as well.
Really?
Yeah.
You're open what times?
We're open Tuesday through Sunday as of right now, 11 to midnight, and we just added breakfast this weekend. So on Saturdays and Sundays we are there. Yeah,
are you nuts?
Yes.
You want that much more work?
Yes, I do.
I used to be in the restaurant business. I told you that. And I started with a diner, and used to close at 2 in the afternoon. You know, opened at 5:30 to 2.
Yep.
I got a full liquor license, and I put a pub in there. And I started open from 5:30 in the morning to 1 in the morning. And there were times I was there from 5:30 in the morning till 2 in the morning.
Yeah, it's a tough business, but you get out of it what you put into it. You know, and everything reflects in the product. You always get good fresh. There's, you know, I'm typically there most of the time. So you get a really unique experience at Tugas, so I'm hoping it'll pay off in the long run.
Yes, I hope so. I mean, you certainly have the desire for it, and you do a good job.
Thank you.
You do a good job.
Thank you. So we also brought a couple more plates. Are you hungry?
Oh yeah. Tell me, explain this one to me.
Come. Portuguese thing. So this is our B-Talk. This and the guests have named it B2K because they don't know how to say B-Talk.
B2K. There you go. There's your egg again.
Yes. So it's a typical
French
steak.
fries, eggs, steak, steak and eggs.
Our homemade gravy.
Homemade gravy.
And the unique thing about Tugas is we use top-of-the-line beef. So in there you'll find a Black Angus New York sirloin center cut steak, and they call it a nude steak because there's no fat. So you'll get a wonderful piece of steak on your plate.
And what?
That's our jasmine rice.
You add rice to it?
Yes.
Just a little different.
We're
Jazz
carbs,
it up. Huh?
Carbs people. A
You're
carb person.
You're a carb
off the
person.
farmland. Rice, potatoes, egg, steak. And right here for the Lenten season, we have fresh tuna steak.
Look at this. I hope you're hungry.
Topped with sauteed onions and peppers and a nice fresh salad.
That's certainly more than that's for a couple people. That one.
No, that's how. Well, you're not Portuguese, but you were married to a Portuguese lady. You know that.
Yeah,
that's
but I
how
did
we
the
feed
cooking.
people. Oh, yeah. And we watch all the plates.
Now wait a minute. That's an order.
That's an order. Yeah.
That's tuna.
Tuna steak, correct. Came this morning.
That's a pound at least.
Yeah. Doesn't it look good though? Well, I like to feed people out. I hate to think that anybody leaves hungry.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're having a lot of fun over there, and we have music just about every day. There's always something going on.
Really? What do you mean? What do you have for music?
So, no, I'm sorry, we have different events every day. So today we have 2 for $25. Wednesday is Half Price Wednesday. Thursdays we have Latin Night. Oh, you'd love Latin Night. You know?
Really? Why would I love Latin Night?
There's a lot of beautiful women dancing around.
You're trying to say I love women?
Well, don't you? Friday nights we have live music. Saturday nights we have live music. So there's a lot going on.
All right, I'll be over there Thursday night. I'm going back to the stocks. We'll have something to eat. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Does it smell good, huh? Oh, it looks delicious. Sandy does a great job over there, right on Middle Spring Avenue, right here in the fashionable city of Pawtucket, Rhode Island.
Yes, it's very good. It smells very good too.
Well, we'll have a little bit of that in a few minutes.
Yes.
So, all right, penny stocks. Mark Rapoza from Barrett. I'm sorry, Barrett. Penny stocks. Years ago, I got suckered into buying some penny stocks. It's almost like going to the casino and playing the penny slots. Right. But you play the penny slots, but then you can bet 299 pennies if you want. You can really blow your money real quick up there. Yeah. Same thing happened. I had bought some stocks, started jumping up. I bought it for, I don't know, $1 change, and then it went up to $1.50. I made money, and it went up to $2. I made more money. I bought more. It went up to $3, and I bought more. Then it started coming down. I'm saying, I got to buy more just to protect my investment. Right. And it came down. I bought more to protect my investment, of course. I ended up with 48,000 or 46,000 penny stocks that end up being worthless.
Right. Well, I think, it's without commenting specifically on penny stocks, I would tell you this, again, would go back to the root of the conversation that we started with, and that is, if you have a plan, if you've talked with an advisor, and if you, the whole process is tied around what you're trying to achieve and how you're going to achieve it, you tend to end up with a much, a diversified portfolio.
Right.
So, my general advice would be
not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Absolutely. So, and that's so again, that if you look at equity investing, just going back to equities for a minute, in general, it's very important to understand, however, that there is volatility in markets. So if you look over time, let's say since 1900, and you look at the Dow, the S&P, corrections happen, setbacks happen.
Right.
Typically, you get a 10%, on average, historically, we've had 10% corrections at least once a year. And we've had 20% or more corrections every 3.5 years. So volatility is part of the process
so the one that
of investing.
Just happened.
Correct. That's right. So,
and percentage-wise,
It was
really,
10%. So if you want to, let's just go to that for a second. So if you go to the correction that we just had over the last couple of weeks,
right.
Market pulled back roughly about 10, 11%.
But it
peak.
sounded like a big deal because it would drop to 2,000
It did, and here's the fascinating thing, and here's where the financial advisor and all the things we discussed all come together. So the week, whenever that was, a week or two ago, when the markets were coming down, you had a couple of days there where the market was down 1,000 points. I remember being in my office and commenting to some of my colleagues that I had received about 10 alerts from my CNBC app telling me the Dow drops 500, Dow drops 600, Dow's plunging 700. So the news cycle is always having you focus on short-term events.
Right.
But what's very important, and again, if you have a philosophy, a plan, if you have an advisor that is really focused on behavioral advice, changing behavior of investing, you're going to stay executing the plan through those periods. And that, I just can't overestimate that enough. I can't state that enough of how important that is. And I think it's really the essential tool that an advisor brings to any relationship in investing.
So in some cases, you might even say, buy. This is the time to buy.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. If it fits what the client's trying to accomplish, absolutely.
Talk about the changing nature of education and career planning in the stock market.
So this is a big topic. It's a big topic because when we sit down with clients in our offices and in their homes, one of the primary things you hear families talk about, families who have children or,
right.
Higher education, college. So we really believe that, this college planning, undergraduate degree, so to speak, someone getting out of high school,
and if they decide, first of all,
very expensive, but if the child does decide they're going to go on to college, it's still going to be a very important component going forward. However, we also believe that the nature of education is changing dramatically, and going again back to Exponential Technologies. Right on my iPhone, I can tap onto an app, iPhone University, and get access to courses on coding, on Shakespeare, on just about any topic you can possibly
right.
imagine, free. So one of the things that I think is going to be fascinating and kind of ties into education career planning is if you go back and you look at the population with internet access, let's say in 2010, it was only about 20% of the world population had internet
right.
access. By 2020, that'll be about 65 to 70%. So you're going to have a global population that's going to have access to educational tools. The change in what we believe will be longer careers because of longer lifespans, because of all the advancements coming in science, is going to really mean that investors, clients are going to have to prepare for lifelong education.
Right.
Rather than, it's one of the books I brought with me tonight, and I would really advise to people if they want to kind of expand on this, is two books. One of them is written by a financial advisor, Rick Edelman, who does, I think, a great job in this book talking about the truth about your future, highlighting all of the different technologies and all the changes that are coming. And the other one there is a book written by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler, talking about how to take advantage of exponential technologies in your life and how to reshape your thinking. But one of the things that is talked about in the book that I think Edelman does a great job is he talks about the model that used to be. And the model that used to be, he calls it the New York model. And the New York model was you went to school, you got out of college, and you graduated, got a job, worked for a company for 40 years. You followed that approach.
And then you retired.
Exactly. We're moving towards what they call the Hollywood model, which is just like in a Hollywood screen, a performance, people come together, do a project. When they're done, they leave, they go on to the next project. So the nature of jobs is going to change, and therefore the nature of education is going to change. So you're going to need to continually educate yourself through your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and we tell clients to be just cognizant of that fact when they're looking at colleges and looking at college choices, that you can't just look at it and say, okay, well, I'm going to have my son or daughter get a 4-year degree and then I'm all set. No, you have to plan out what they're going to have to do for the next 40 or 50 years.
Right.
That's a very different conversation than generations past.
Wow. And as you say, life expectancy today is a heck of a lot higher than it was.
One of the
20 years
most profound things that we see developing over the next 5 to 10 years, again, going back to where we kind of hit the real change in the dynamics of the economy, is the change in life expectancy.
Sure.
So Time magazine back in 2015, I think the cover article was a picture of a baby on it, and it basically said, this baby will have the opportunity potentially to live to 140. And the reality is that's a very realistic possibility. And anybody who's in their 50s, 60s, 70s, we tell clients today, you need to plan for the potential, God willing, that you could go, your spouse, you could go to 100 years old. That redefines things. So instead of a client thinking about, you know, we get, one of the things I see in my practice many times is a client will come in and say, I'm 65. It's almost like they believe they need to hunker down in 65. I don't believe that. I think if you look at it from the perspective of 65, and again, if health, if the person has the good fortune to have good health, they're looking at still a 30 to 35 year time horizon. So early retirement may not be such a great idea for a lot of people. The idea of cashing in on your equities may not be such a great idea. We think it's going to potentially mean, again, depending on the situation, equities for a longer period of time. And we think all of these things, education planning, planning for longer life, all these things need to be part of the new conversation that's taking place with clients.
All right. Crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and I want to get into Bitcoin.
Yeah.
We've got to talk about Bitcoin.
Okay, sure. So these are some of the buzzwords that we hear a lot about today. So to me, the real two fascinating things are crowdfunding and crowdsourcing. So crowdfunding is, in a simplified version, is basically pools of people, usually through the internet, coming together to offer small pools of money for entrepreneurs who are looking to create a business. So traditionally, the way small businesses may have been created was somebody went to the bank, tried to get a small business loan. That's still an avenue. But what we're increasingly seeing is that crowdfunding is becoming a much bigger business. So if you go back and you look, let's say in 2015, it's about a $5 billion enterprise. We look out, if we look out over the next 10 years, the potential forecasted is probably $100 billion of industry. So, and what it does, it's decentralizing the economy because it's opening up avenues for all of the global. So we've got, you basically have about 7.5 billion people in the world today. Many of them now are going to be coming online with internet access, access to education, opportunity, access now through crowdfunding to maybe start a business. More competitive, but more opportunity as well, and we think that that's very important. Crowdsourcing is really taking advantage of a vast group of people to solve a problem. So to give a quick example, if you go back to, let's say, 2011, Aetna had a situation where they had created some algorithms where they were looking for a way to help price insurances. They went out through a internet site. They went out and they said, you know what, we're going to use our internal people, but we're also going to go out there and see if we can get some data people and some real smart minds to see if they can figure it out even better.
Right.
And that's crowdsourcing. And what that means is that you're bringing in not only people within an organization, but people outside of an organization to tap and solve problems. And what ended up happening was they offered a prize, I think it was $10,000 for the person. They got hundreds of answers, and they ended up coming up with an algorithm that saved them millions of dollars.
Wow.
So all these things are taking place, again, going back to these little specks of sand that are changing in the economy that we think over time are going to be profound.
All right, explain, we only got a few minutes left. Explain the importance of estate planning and in dealing with your financial plan.
So many clients, so if you're spending all this time developing a plan, putting a plan in place, and if you're fortunate enough to have legacy behind you to pass it on, it's so important to have an estate plan. If you look nationally around the United States, 60% of the U.S. population has no estate plan at all, no will, no documents. And of those who do, about a third of them have not notified any loved ones, anyone, or where any of these key documents are. So it's such an important conversation. It ties everything together, because the reality is that, you know, legacy, it really is an important thing for all of us. You know, what we kind of leave behind, and you know, if you can get you know, access to a good estate planning attorney who can, you know, offer insights on these things, it's in my view, as from the planning side, is incredibly invaluable.
So everybody should have a will. I guess I got to go get a will,
yes,
right? I got to go get my will done. Do I finally got to go get my will
yes,
done?
Yes, you should.
Huh? You think so?
Yes, you should.
I got nobody to leave anything to, and nothing to leave. Well, Mark, it's been very interesting having you here.
Yeah, it's been great, and I would just leave with, I think we live in fascinating times. Yes, there are challenges, but I think it's very important to also recognize the fact that as we move forward and as we think about the future, we're in an era of tremendous opportunity.
And so if you got money, where are you? If you got any money, you want to look to save it, or go see an estate planner, or go see a business planner, go see a stockbroker, or
financial advisor, financial advisor, sure.
Or
yeah, go see someone.
The same.
Go see someone.
Go
yes,
see
someone
Mark,
with some
Mark
expertise.
Rapoza.
Absolutely.
Right?
Great. It's a pleasure. Pleasure.
Pleasure's mine.
Yes.
Hey, I got to ask you though. You say Rick Edelman. Now I hear an advertisement, Rick Edelman, and then they say another name.
Not sure. I'm not sure, but
no. And it's not that the name.
Yeah,
it's just
yeah.
that the fact that they say Rick Edelman.
Yep. He's written some great.
Like
he's written some. He's written some great books. This is his newest one, and it's just one that I think, again, if people are looking to kind of get a little bit more in depth than what we just kind of we just touched upon some things, I just think he does a really terrific job of laying out all of the changes that are coming, and it's really a terrific read, and he writes it in a way that I think is very accessible to most people.
Now, what's the difference between a financial advisor and a financial planner, or is there a difference? There is a difference.
Yes, there is a difference. Financial planners, there is a special certification for a financial planner that really focuses on that. But if you're working with a financial planner, a good financial advisor, you'll do well, I believe.
All right, sounds good to me.
Yeah, terrific. Terrific.
It beats 1% in the bank, right?
Yeah, it can. Yes,
1% or less.
Yes.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for enjoying an hour with Bob and Mark and Susan over there.
Yes,
Susan.
Sandy.
I'm calling her
She
Susan.
did a terrific job.
I'm calling her Susan.
I'm ready to dig into that.
Sandy, come here. Where you going? Come here, Sandy. You're going to make us some food, right?
I already did.
You got some food for us.
Are you hungry? Thanks, Fromm?
Yes, it looks delicious.
Come on, bring that over. Bring something over here.
No, I was waitressing too. Take it easy.
Come on over here and join us. Come on over here and join us.
Oh,
come over here, right here. You get over here. Come on. Look at this.
And today, an hour with Bob is being replaced by Sandy and Mark.
I can't believe that's one
meal.
meal.
Your fork. Yeah. Isn't it lovely?
We're gonna dig
That's
in.
great. I'm telling you. Look at that.
Are you a tuna guy? Like, are you fish?
Yeah, I'll try both before I leave.
Your name is Portuguese. Do you speak Portuguese?
No, I do not.
Okay.
No, I do not.
My name's not
Portuguese.
And it smells good. It smells good.